The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already lost. You believe that if you just explain yourself clearly enough, calmly enough, with enough evidence, the person accusing you will finally see the truth. That belief is not just wrong, it is the exact mechanism they are using to keep you trapped in their courtroom. Think about the last time someone accused you of something you did not do, a mistake at work you did not make, a motive you did not have, a betrayal you never committed. You felt the heat rise in your chest. You opened your mouth. You produced the timeline, the witnesses, the receipts. You laid out the evidence like a lawyer in front of a jury that had already decided the verdict before you entered the room. And when you finished, the other person did not say, "I was wrong." They said, "That's what someone guilty would say." You felt the specific cold exhaustion of arguing with a wall that cannot hear you because it already knows what it wants to believe. Here is what was actually operating beneath that conversation. The person who has already decided you are guilty is not engaged in a search for truth. They are engaged in a confirmation ritual. The psychological mechanism is called belief perseverance, the human tendency to reject any evidence that contradicts a conclusion already reached. Your evidence does not change their mind. It becomes new evidence of your guilt. The more you explain, the more you confirm their suspicion. You are not defending yourself. You are performing a confession in a trial you lost before you entered the room, and you have been funding that performance every time you opened your mouth to a closed mind. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli watched men destroy themselves in the courts of Florence by doing exactly what you are still doing. They explained, they justified, they produced evidence to people who had already decided they were enemies, and every explanation was used against them, not because the evidence was weak, but because the listener's verdict was never in doubt. He wrote, "Men are quick to change their nature when it serves them." He meant that the person accusing you will not change their mind because of your words. They will change their story only when it serves their interest to do so. Your innocence is irrelevant to someone whose position depends on your guilt. In this video, you are going to learn exactly how to identify when someone has already decided you are guilty before you waste a single sentence defending yourself. You will learn the exact 3 words that end every false accusation, the body language that makes your silence louder than their shouting, and the psychological shift that turns your accuser from a judge into a defendant. By the end, you will never again waste your breath on someone who has already decided you are guilty. You will simply walk away, and they will be the one left explaining. Before we go further, you need to understand why your biology betrays you in these moments. Because this is not a failure of intelligence, it is not a failure of argument construction, it is a failure of psychology, and it started before you were old enough to choose it. Think back to when you were 5 years old. A parent, a teacher, an authority figure who accused you of something. What was the only exit, explanation? "I didn't break it. It fell. I didn't hit him. He hit me first." You learned at 5 years old that authority figures hold the power of judgment and that your safety depended on convincing that authority that you were good. The problem is your body never got the update that you grew up. You are walking through the world as a man, carrying the nervous system of a 5-year-old child who learned that explanation is survival. Every time someone accuses you, your nervous system fires the same signal it fired in that childhood room. Explain, convince them, make them see that you are good. The cortisol spikes, the chest tightens, the mouth opens, and you have given the same response you gave at 5. When you defend yourself against someone, you are subconsciously communicating, "You are the judge, I am the child, please accept my plea so I can feel safe again." You are not speaking as a man, you are speaking as a defendant. And human beings, primal as they are, can smell the scent of submission from across a room. The man who never explains himself has killed the child who needed permission. That is not coldness, that is sovereignty. In 1513, Niccolo Machiavelli was accused of conspiracy against the Medici family in Florence. He had done nothing. He had been a loyal servant of the previous Florentine Republic. He had dedicated his career to the administration of the city he loved. His name appeared on a list of conspirators, a list that was almost certainly fabricated by men who needed scapegoats to demonstrate their loyalty to the new rulers. Machiavelli was arrested. He was taken to the Bargello, the prison and torture chamber in the center of Florence, and subjected to the strappado. His hands were bound behind his back, a rope was attached to his wrists, and he was hoisted into the air and dropped repeatedly, each drop stopping just before his feet touched the ground. The technique dislocated shoulders, it ruptured muscles, it was designed to produce confession. He had nothing to confess. He had every reason to explain. He had evidence, he had witnesses, he had a career of documented loyalty. He had the precise kind of case that, presented correctly, should have produced his immediate release. He said almost nothing. He wrote one letter from his cell to a friend. A single line that communicates the most devastating psychological intelligence of the Renaissance. He wrote, "I have not written to you to complain. I have written to inform you that I am still here." Not a defense, not an explanation, not a recitation of his innocence, a statement of existence. I am still here. 6 weeks later, he was released, not because he proved his innocence, because the political winds shifted and his accusers no longer needed him. The court that convicted him never acquitted him. He simply refused to perform in it. The man who wrote the operating manual for human power survived the most dangerous political accusation of the Renaissance by applying the single principle he would later document with the precision of a surgeon. Never enter the frame your enemy built for you. The moment you step onto their battlefield and fight by their rules, the battle is already lost. The only winning move is to refuse to acknowledge that the battle exists. Now translate that directly to your life. The last time someone accused you at work, in your relationship, in your family, in a group of people whose opinion you valued, what did you do? You argued, you explained, you produced evidence, you performed innocence for a jury that had already filed the verdict. What did that performance cost you? Not just the time, not just the energy, the perception of power. You entered the conversation as the person who was wronged. You left it as the person who looked guilty, because you performed the role of the defendant so completely that the courtroom became real. The courtroom does not exist. There is no judge, there is no jury, there is only you and your decision about whether to step onto the stage someone else built. Now let us talk about what is actually happening when someone accuses you. Because the accusation is almost never about the thing being accused. The accusation is about the response. Every person who has ever accused you has already calculated several possible outcomes before they spoke. If you defend yourself, they win. Your defense confirms that their judgment matters. If you get angry, they win. Your anger confirms the accusation landed. If you explain, they win. Your explanation confirms you are playing their game. The only outcome in which they lose is the one where you do nothing. This is the mechanism called the accusation trap, the psychological architecture in which the trap is not the accusation itself, but the expectation of a response. The moment you respond, you are caught. The trap is not designed to establish truth, it is designed to establish submission. Every response you provide, regardless of its content, confirms that the trap has worked. Defending yourself against someone who has already decided you are guilty is like arguing your case in a courtroom where the judge wrote the verdict before you entered the room. The performance is entirely yours. The audience belongs to them. The outcome was never in question. You have been performing in that courtroom your entire life. Let us name the people who have already decided, because the title of this video contains the most important word, already. Not the people who are uncertain, not the people who are genuinely confused, the people who made up their mind before they confronted you. You can identify them with a single test. When you began your last explanation, did the other person's expression change? Not in response to your specific points, at all. Did their face open, or did it stay closed? Did their body language shift toward you, or away from you? Did they ask a question that suggested they were incorporating new information, or did they respond to your explanation by escalating the accusation? The person who wants the truth asks a follow-up question. The person who wants submission escalates. You have been treating these two categories as the same person, because you have been too focused on constructing your argument to observe the person you are delivering it to. You kept explaining because you believed that with enough evidence, enough clarity, enough precision, the truth would eventually penetrate. It does not penetrate, not because you are a poor communicator, because the wall was built before you started speaking. The man who has already decided you are guilty is not missing information about you. He has decided what to do with the information he already has. Your additional information does not correct his conclusion. It gives him more material to reframe in service of the conclusion he already reached. You are not losing arguments, you are feeding systems that were never designed to receive what you are offering. Think about the last time you watched a public figure handle an accusation poorly. They released statements, they held press conferences, they produced documentation, they gave interviews, they kept explaining, and with each new piece of information, the public became more convinced that they were hiding something, not less. The more they said, the worse it became. By the time they were finally vindicated, nobody remembered the original accusation because the defense had become the entire story. This is what overperforming innocence looks like from the outside. The innocent do not need to convince anyone. The secure do not need to be understood. The man who keeps explaining is the man who cannot tolerate being misunderstood. And the people watching him can feel that intolerance. They interpret it as the specific anxiety of a person who knows the truth is different from what he is presenting. You have been overperforming innocence in your personal life for the same reason. Not because you are guilty, because somewhere in your psychology, the verdict of the person across from you still has the power to affect how you feel about yourself, and they can feel that. They use it. The man who does not defend himself cannot be attacked in this way. There is no handle, there is no surface that gives purchase. You cannot grab hold of indifference, you cannot redirect composure, you cannot use silence as ammunition. There is a specific social mechanic that operates beneath every false accusation that most men never identify, the mechanism that explains why defending yourself makes the accusation stronger rather than weaker. When you defend yourself, you reveal your values, you reveal what hurts you, you reveal your pressure points. I am not stupid, and now they know your insecurity is intelligence. I am not a bad person, and now they know your insecurity is moral standing. I was not trying to hurt you, and now they know your specific wound is the fear of being seen as cruel. Every defense is a map of your interior, and a person who has already decided you are guilty and will have further conversations with you is collecting that map. They are not listening to your argument. They are listening for the volume of your response. They are listening for which accusation made your voice change, pitch. They are filing which line made your hands move and which question made you break eye contact. The next time they need to move you, they will use the map you handed them in your defense. This is called vulnerability disclosure, under pressure, the involuntary revelation of psychological weak points that occurs when a person attempts to defend themselves against an accusation they experience as identity threatening. The more threatening the accusation feels, the more completely you disclose. The more you disclose, the more precisely the next attack can be calibrated. You have been arming your accusers every time you opened your mouth to prove them wrong. Now let us talk about what you do instead. Because this is not a philosophy video, this is an operational framework. And every principle requires a specific behavior correction that you can execute in the next conversation that requires it. Law 1. Never explain yourself to someone who has already decided you are guilty. Not because you have something to hide, because your explanation is not a communication, it is a submission. The moment you explain, you accept their frame. You accept that they are the judge. You accept that their judgment has authority over your internal state. Here is the correction. When someone accuses you of something you did not do, you have one response, 3 words. That is interesting. Then you stop talking. You do not explain. You do not defend. You do not produce witnesses. You observe. The person who genuinely wants the truth will ask a follow-up question. The person who wants control will escalate. And when they escalate, you will know exactly what the accusation was designed to accomplish. You do not need to defend yourself against a test. You only need to observe the test being administered. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." He is one of the most misunderstood writers in 500 years of intellectual history. People read that line and think he was advocating cruelty. He was not. He was documenting a specific truth about human social architecture that modern society has spent centuries trying to breed out of you. Now translate it to current social dynamics. It is much safer to be respected than understood. When you rush to defend, you are prioritizing being understood over being respected. You are saying, please get me, please see my intent, please accept my innocence. A man who occupies a position of genuine authority does not explain his decisions to the people who question them. A man who is secure in who he is does not require the person who doubts him to be corrected. The moment you start explaining, producing evidence, referencing past behavior, listing everything you have done to demonstrate your good character, you have signaled that your internal stability depends on their agreement. You have handed them the key to a door that should never have been available for external entry. Once they have the key, they will use it whenever the situation requires them to move you. Law 2. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the only response that cannot be used against you. Every word you speak can be twisted, taken out of context, repeated with different framing, or deployed as evidence of something you never intended. Silence cannot be twisted. Silence has no context. Silence is the only position that is truly unassailable. Think about what happens physiologically when you stay silent in the face of an accusation. The human brain is terrified of silence during conflict. Silence signals a rupture in the social fabric. It signals that one person has stopped playing the game, and the person who accuses you built their entire approach on the assumption that you would play. When you stay silent, when you hold eye contact, keep your face neutral and let the silence sit for 3, 4, 5 seconds, something shifts. The tension you were expected to resolve remains in the air, and the human brain, desperate to resolve tension, will push the person who created it to fill the void. They will speak again. I mean, you're not always like this, but right now, or why are you looking at me like that? They begin defending themselves against your silence. The power has reversed without you saying a single word. Your silence in the face of an accusation is like a locked door. The person who genuinely needs to enter will knock. The person who is trying to break in will test the handle, find it locked, and move to an easier target. Your explanation is not a key. It is an open door. It tells them that your interior is available for inspection. Let me give you the example that will land in your chest before you finish hearing it. Defending yourself against someone who has already decided you are guilty is like handing your wallet to a mugger and then trying to convince him you have no more money in your other pocket. The mugger does not care about the truth of your statement. He cares about the fact that you are still talking. Every word you say confirms that you are afraid, and fear is the only currency he is collecting. You have been handing over your wallet your entire life. You have responded to accusations by opening your complete psychological and factual history to prove you had nothing to hide. Your accuser did not want your history. He wanted your submission, and you delivered it in exhaustive detail with footnotes. Now let us look at the architecture of the conversation itself, because there is a deeper mechanism operating in every accusation that most men never identify. Every conflict has a hidden structure. There is a judge and there is a defendant. The judge asks the questions. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Who do you think you are? The defendant answers, and whoever is asking the questions holds the power. Whoever is answering is losing status with every response. The most precise thing you can do in a conflict is to refuse the role of defendant and reclaim the position of the observer. You do this not by counterattacking. Counterattacks are still responses, and responses still confirm the court's authority, but by shifting the subject of analysis from your behavior to theirs. They say, "Why are you always so late?" You defend. "There was traffic, my alarm didn't go off, the meeting ran over." You lose. You observe. "Why does my arrival time affect your mood so deeply?" The subject of the conversation has shifted. We are no longer examining the clock. We are examining their emotional response to the clock. You have put the spotlight back on them without raising your voice, without producing evidence, without engaging with the accusation at all. This is not manipulation. This is the refusal to accept a role that was assigned to you without your consent. Sometimes silence is not available. Sometimes the situation requires words, but the words are never defensive. The dark psychology concept that applies here is called agree and amplify. The specific technique by which you take an accusation and expand it into a caricature which dissolves it rather than fighting it. When you defend against an absurd accusation, you validate its seriousness. You communicate that the accusation deserves a response. Instead, you lean into it with the specific calm of someone who finds the accusation mildly amusing rather than threatening. They say, "You are so obsessed with money, you're greedy." You defend, "No, I'm not. I just want to provide for my family and build something real." Boring. predictable, reads as confirmation. You amplify. You caught me. I actually swim in a vault of gold coins every Tuesday. It is terrible for my back. Flat face, slight smirk, complete indifference to whether they find it funny. What did you just do? You refused to be insulted. You demonstrated that you are not insecure about the topic. You turned their serious attack into a comedy that only they are performing seriously. You established that you are the one framing the reality of this interaction, not them. They brought a knife. You peeled an apple with it. This is what is called amused mastery. The specific emotional posture of a person who is so secure in their position that the attack does not reach the level of his real concerns. It is the posture of a parent watching a toddler throw a tantrum. You do not argue with the toddler. You are not threatened by the toddler. You observe the tantrum with the calm of someone who knows they are safe. When you defend yourself, you get on the floor and scream with the toddler. Do not do that. Stand up. Look down. Let them finish. There is a variant of this, the most counterintuitive and therefore the most powerful, that will feel wrong until you understand what it actually communicates. Agree, without qualification, without amendment, without the subtle asterisk that converts agreement into justification. Not the agreement of submission, the agreement of the abyss. When someone is listing your failures at volume, when they are trying to provoke a response through escalating accusation, you look at them calmly and say, "You're right." Then you stop talking. This is called the fogging technique, and what it does to an aggressor is specific and immediate. They are pushing against a door they expect to be locked. When the door opens, they fall forward into nothing. They want a fight. They want the resistance that validates their anger. Agreement neutralizes the entire energy of the attack by removing the obstacle it was aimed at. But here is the precision that makes this work rather than simply capitulate. You agree with the fact in their statement. You ignore the identity label they are attaching to it. They say, "You messed up that report. You're incompetent." You defend, "I'm not incompetent. The data I was given was wrong. You didn't give me enough time." You have now accepted the frame, argued within it, and confirmed that the word incompetent was threatening enough to require a response. You agree, "You're right. The report has errors. I'll fix it." Notice what is not there. You did not address incompetent. You acknowledged the fact, errors, and stated the correction, "I'll fix it." You ignored the identity assassination as if it was not spoken, which communicates that it did not land, which communicates that you are not insecure about it. Only a person who is genuinely secure in their competence can admit a mistake that easily. Insecure people fight to the death to prove they did not make an error. Secure people say, "My bad," and move. You laid down the sword, now they look foolish, holding theirs. None of this works as a technique if the internal architecture is not built. If you are using these responses but your voice is tightening, your eyes are searching for confirmation that it worked, your body is communicating, "Please accept my indifference as genuine," it will fail. Dark psychology is 20% words and 80% the emotional state from which they are delivered. Here is the hardest truth in this entire video. The reason an accusation hurts is not because the accusation is accurate. It is because it is touching a wound that already exists. If someone told you that you have green skin, you would not defend yourself. You would look at them with the specific confusion of a person who has just heard something completely disconnected from reality. You would not explain. You would not produce evidence. You would not feel the heat rise in your chest. You would simply observe that they have made a demonstrably false statement and move on. But when someone calls you a failure and you defend, it is because some part of you is not certain. They are wrong. The accusation only has power where you are already uncertain. This means the final correction is not a verbal technique. It is not a strategic response. It is the specific internal work of looking at every part of yourself that you are afraid someone might expose and accepting it before anyone else can weaponize it. The man who has already accepted his own darkness cannot be shamed with it. The man who knows he is capable of selfishness, cruelty, failure, and inadequacy, and has looked at those capabilities without flinching, cannot be attacked at those coordinates because he has already stood in them. You cannot expose a man who has nothing left to hide. You cannot shame a man who has already sat in his own worst moments and decided they do not define him. This is what it means to become untouchable. Not the technique, the specific internal architecture of a man who has accepted himself so completely that external verdicts do not reach the level of his real concerns. Now let us name what all of this adds up to. The single mechanism that runs beneath every law, every technique, every historical precedent in this video. Every time you defend yourself against a person who has already decided you are guilty, you are not defending your reputation. You are defending your need to be seen as good by people who have already decided what they see. The defense is not about the accusation. It is about your relationship with your own self-perception. You explain because you cannot tolerate being misunderstood. You defend because you need external confirmation of your internal goodness. You argue because somewhere in your psychology, the verdict of the person across from you still has the power to shake what you know about yourself. The man who never defends himself has separated his self-perception from other people's capacity to influence it. His reputation is not a construction project he manages. It is a byproduct of his actions over time. He does not build it with words. He does not repair it with explanations. He simply acts and allows the actions to accumulate into a record that no individual accusation can overwrite. Machiavelli wrote, and this is the line that brings everything in this video to a single point: men judge generally more by their eyes than by their hands. Everyone can see what you appear to be, but few touch what you really are. He meant that your words will never convince someone who has already decided what they see. Only your actions accumulate into something that outlasts their verdict. And the action that accumulates the most, the one that leaves the most permanent mark on how you are perceived across every social environment you inhabit, is the action of refusing to explain. The man who does not defend himself cannot be attacked. There is nothing to grip, no handle, no surface that gives purchase. You cannot pull down a man who is not holding on to the opinion of the person pulling. Every explanation you have ever given installed another handle. Every defense built another surface. The work from this point forward is the removal of every handle you have installed, not through aggression, not through distance, but through the specific discipline of a man who has decided that his interior is not available for external audit. Stop building handles. If this video reached something real, if you felt the specific discomfort of recognizing every conversation you have ever lost in the patterns just named, hit the like button, not as a favor, as a signal to yourself that you are done performing innocence for people who were never paying attention. Subscribe if you want this level of precision delivered consistently. If you want access to the full counter-positioning framework, the exact language architecture for shutting down predetermined verdicts without a word of defense, the specific psychological scripts for turning silence into the most threatening response in any conflict, and the dark psychology of verdict anchoring, the documented mechanism by which accusers pre-construct the social environment before confronting you, so that by the time the accusation lands, the audience is already prepared to receive your defense as guilt, click the join button below. That content cannot be published here, not because I chose not to share it, because the specificity of what it teaches about how accusations are constructed and deployed against specific psychological targets is the kind of operational intelligence this platform protects certain social dynamics from. Inside, a circle of men who have stopped explaining. The knowledge inside is not theoretical. It is the exact behavioral framework that changes your position in the next conflict before the first accusation lands. The circle stays small because that is what keeps what lives inside it worth having. Most men who clicked this video were gone in the first 4 minutes. Not because the content was difficult, because the recognition arrived so fast and so accurately that sitting in it was more uncomfortable than scrolling away. You sat in it. That is not a small thing. It is the specific evidence of a man who values clarity over comfort. The next accusation is already coming. It always comes. The question is not whether you will be accused. The question is whether you will step into the ring or let them shadow box alone while you watch from outside the ropes with the specific calm of a man who has already decided the fight was never his to enter.